Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Hopkinson, and I live in West Lynn, Oregon, which is right near Portland, Oregon. And I'm in my house, in my office, which is our dining room, and it's full of books, which you can't see because I've hidden them, but they are all around me. And I write nonfiction and historical fiction for children and teens. And my newest book is Thanks to Frances Perkins, Fighter for Workers' Rights. Here's the cover of it. The art is by Christy Caldwell, and it's published by Peachtree Press in Atlanta, Georgia. Years ago, I was writing a book about the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, which took place in 1911, and it was a horrible tragedy. And Frances happened to be there. She was a social worker. She was living in New York City. That Saturday afternoon, when the fire horses came and the engines came and they tried to put the water high up on the 9th and 10th floor of a building, she witnessed this horrible tragedy where 146 young workers died, and that changed her life. She went on to become the first woman who was in a presidential cabinet, and she was our longest serving Secretary of Labor. But before that, she began working to change conditions for women in factories. And we can see that in some of the pictures in the book, which I'll show you next. This is the scene of the Triangle Factory. And one of the things that was so horrific was that workers, young women, many of them immigrants, had been fighting for better conditions for years, but they weren't always successful. And one of the horrible things about this tragedy was that some of the doors were locked. And at one of the memorial services, a young woman, she's right here, her name is Rose Schneiderman, she gave a speech. And this is what she said: "The strong hand of the law beats us back when we rise, conditions that made life unbearable. I can't talk fellowship or gather. Too much blood has been spilled. I know from my experience it is up to the working people to save themselves. The only way they can save themselves is by a strong working class movement." Now, just like in our country today, when we're going through lots of change and we realize that we have many problems with our justice system, that tragedy shocked Americans in 1911. And Frances then began to work for something called the New York Investigating Commission. And she began to take lawmakers into the factories and actually look at what the safety rules were. And she discovered that more laws needed to be made to make sure that the owners in the factories would comply. So things like just making sure that workers had backs on their chairs and that there was fire precautions. When you open a door in a public building, think about it. Which way does it open? It usually opens out. That was one of the rules for the Triangle Factory, but the owners had ignored it. Well, one of the people that Frances began to work for was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And during the Great Depression, he became elected president. And in 1933, he invited Frances to come to his house. This is a book that she wrote called The Roosevelt I Knew. And this is one of the sources I used for my book. And she talks about going to his house. Now, no woman had ever been part of a presidential cabinet before. And she wanted to make sure, she had a suspicion he was going to ask her to be the Secretary of Labor, but she wanted to make sure that they were on the same page and they wanted to do the same things. Well, she came in with a list of things she wanted to do. And one of them was, oh, here, I'm going to read what she said. She said, "I wanted to dissuade him. Since I seem to be making little headway, I tried a new approach. I said that if I accepted the position of Secretary of Labor, I should want to do a great deal. I thought that Roosevelt might consider it too ambitious to be undertaken when the United States was deep in depression and unemployment." And this is some of the things she wanted. Minimum wage laws. That means when you work, you get a minimum wage. Maximum hours a week, so kids didn't work long, long hours, or women in factories and men. and true unemployment and old age insurance, and the abolition of child labor. Well, Frances worked very, very hard in the White House, and old age insurance is what today we call the Social Security Act. And on August 14, 1935, it was signed into law. So this August, which is where we are right now, the summer of 2020, it's about to be 85 years old. One of the things about this book that we wanted to do was also to make it about financial literacy. So it starts out asking young readers, how many years will it be until you are 62 years old? And the reason for that is that beginning at age 62 is when people can begin to collect Social Security. Some people don't know, and it takes a long time to find out, that actually when you get a job, you actually pay into Social Security. And then that becomes something that you can take money later on to help you live when you might be too sick or too old to work. So at the end of this book, Christy Caldwell, the artist, has done this wonderful art of people all over our country who are thanking Frances Perkins. Making laws to change things, it takes a lot of work. So you can see, I'm going to show a picture here. There's Frances. She's making all the notes for the things that she wants to do. And to get the Social Security Act passed, she also had to work late at night and get people together and have them compromise and come to an agreement. This was all part of the New Deal. So unemployment and Social Security was part of the New Deal that really changed America in the 20th century and helped us become a society that was more inclusive, where no one was left out. And we still have lots to do. So one of the things that we're looking at in our time is, how do we make a New Deal for the 21st century? Recently, we've been thinking a lot about the theme of the National Book Festival this year and American Ingenuity. And we really are at a crossroads. Many of us right now are dealing with pandemic time. And recently, because I'm interested in Frances Perkins and the New Deal, I read an opinion piece by Nicholas Christopher. And on July 16th, 2020, he wrote, "Last time our economy rolled, Herbert Hoover's failures led to Franklin D. Roosevelt's election with a mandate to revitalize the nation. The result was the New Deal, social, rural electrification, government jobs programs, and much more. So it's up to us as citizens, young and old, to take part in that revitalization and ingenuity by working in our communities. And that may be just working in your own school, in your own community, to help people, to address justice issues, maybe to get involved in environmental action, and to do the kinds of things to really revitalize our society and help everyone who's been actually suffering so much in this last year during the coronavirus pandemic, and also dealing with our racial justice issues. So Frances Perkins, to me, is a hero, and someone who came from the same state where I grew up. And I hope that when people read this book, they will know more about her than I did when I was growing up. So people often ask me, young writers ask me, how do I become a writer? And the very first thing to do is to read. And if I had a chance to actually show you everything around my desk right now, you would see lots of books. So the more you read and the more you practice writing, the better you get. Every time that I write a book, it doesn't always come out. I get my ideas the same way you do. My brain is like an idea factory, but not all those ideas get made into books. So I just keep trying. And that's actually what Frances Perkins did. She kept trying harder and harder to make a life for herself and make life better for others. So keep reading and good luck. Thank you very much.